an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Donald Trump has made a habit of lighting blue touch paper in his presidential campaign. He did it again yesterday, and the fireworks duly ignited. Everybody in the Republican and Democrat political establishment in America has condemned his newly proclaimed policy of barring foreign Muslims from entering the US. Actually, politicians here too condemned it, from David Cameron to Nigel Farage, who called it a step too far. But if Mr. Trump's appeal is based on anti-establishment credentials, it's not clear whether his supporters will care about the criticism. There is no doubt, though, Trump has been the talk of America today.
Ban on Muslims entering the U.S.
The White House denounced the Trump plan. Jeb Bush calls it, quote, unhinged.
Is the new furor over Donald Trump showing you raising your hand in a pretty demonstrative gesture? And we have from Ibrahim Hooper of the Council on American Islamic Relations saying, are we talking internment camps? Are we talking the final solution to the Muslim question? I feel like I'm back in the 30s. You're increasingly being compared to Hitler. Does that give you any pause at all?
No, because what I'm doing is no different than what FDR's solution for Germans, Italians, Japanese, many years ago.
So you're for internment camps?
We have places in London and other places that are so radicalized that the police are afraid for their own lives.
Well, Trump is quite a phenomenon. Rather than debate the specific merits of the policies he's proposing, we thought we might look at what people like about him. I'm joined by the Iraq War veteran Joel Aarons from South Dakota, chairman of Veterans for a Stronger America, a group which endorsed Donald Trump in September. And from Washington, we're joined by the journalist and playwright Wajahat Ali. Good afternoon to you both. Joel, let me start with you. There's been lots of criticism of what Donald Trump said. Now, has that made any difference to you in your view of what he announced his policy was on foreign Muslims entering the US?
Well, there's always going to be strong criticism of the kind of policy that he suggested. I mean, look, it is a workable policy if we are able to restrict immigration from certain countries of origin. I think what you're seeing in America right now is there's an intense determination among many in the electorate to want to stop radical Islamic terrorism. And in order to stop that, we're looking at new ideas. And so I think what Donald Trump is doing is voicing a lot of the frustration, but also a lot of the resolve and determination that Americans have to want to stop the terrorism from coming to our shores. We just saw it in San Bernardino here last week. Americans are on edge. Donald Trump is giving voice to those people and their concerns. And so when he announces a major policy shift like that, of course you're going to see the kind of criticism. He's not one to shy away from criticism.
Right.
I think that is certainly another...
Well, Dick Cheney, for example, he's hardly, Mr. Liberal, is he? And I mean, everybody in the establishment has criticised him. Does that, in a way, strengthen your support for Trump, or does it make you question?
Well, I don't think it makes us question his support so much as what it says to us is, have the current and existing policies been working? No, they haven't. They haven't stopped terrorism from coming to our shores. What do we do next? We certainly need to look at restricting or putting a temporary pause on immigration. Rupert Murdoch came out today and said actually a temporary pause is a great idea as well. Until we can get a handle on how to best defend the homeland, maybe we should make a temporary pause a part of the dialogue. Donald Trump has certainly done that. I think there's some constitutional issues there that will have to be worked through. It certainly is constitutionally permissible in America to stop immigrants from coming from certain countries of origin. Whether or not the religious test would survive a constitutional challenge is a little uncertain. Okay. But I think that's part of Donald Trump's appeal, is he's plain spoken, and he's really talking to people's concerns right now.
Plain spoken, and the constitutional issues, deal with them later. Look, before I go to Wajahat Ali, let me just talk about this. Today, Mr. Trump said, parts of London are so radicalised the police are afraid for their own lives. Now, I live in London. I've lived here for quite a few years. I can tell you, I think that is not true. Now, Does that matter to you that I, who live in London, tell you that Donald Trump has just made up something that is, basically balderdash nonsense, and spouted it as though it's a fact? Does it matter to you as a supporter of his that he does that or not?
I think what he's giving rise to, he certainly is giving a reference to some of the no-go zones that that appear throughout Europe. I think, we've seen that in France. There are certain places. We even see it in America today, where there's certain towns in America where
but we don't
you
see
have
it in London. I don't want to argue about it with you, because we don't have it in London. And he said we have it in London. And what I want to know is whether it matters to you, whether the truth value of what he says is actually of any significance, or whether it's that he's giving voice to those kinds of concerns that is the appeal.
He's a bombastic figure. He's going to say exaggerated things from time to time in order to make his point. It's how he's cutting through like a stiletto knife to the rest of the American public, because they understand what he's saying. They understand what he's trying to get through with these 30-second sound bites that most of America can't get past. He's getting through. He's getting past. They understand it. They understand that there's no-go zones around Europe. Whether or not they're in London or not is irrelevant to the major policy issue of, is it happening?
Joel Aarons, thank you, and stay there. I'm going to put some of that. That's been very interesting. I want to put some of that to Wajahat Ali. Wajahat Ali, what is your theory as to why Donald Trump has been so unbeatable in this Republican contest this year?
Evan, I think what we're witnessing is the death rattle of white supremacy in America. And specifically, white supremacy is an ideology of exclusion. And, there are people who want to constrict America, and then there's others who want to stretch America to accommodate minorities and freedoms. And all the studies show that Trump is appealing to the disaffected white voter. So the surveys show that the white voter, this base, is saying this America no longer belongs to me. I can no longer become a protagonist of the American narrative. Things are changing too quickly. There's income inequality. Americans are going to become a minority-majority country. There's immigrants. There's gay marriage now.
But he's got support among black and Hispanic voters. It's not big support, but it's not negligible support either.
Well, it's still small support, but it's this base, I think, that plays into fear. And what Trump does, cynically, and it's a playbook, by the way, that has been used before. This is nothing unique. He marries anger with hate, with ignorance, and creates a Molotov cocktail and projects strength by lobbying it against a perceived enemy, the other. The other, in this case, is minorities, Muslims, women, black men, Mexican immigrants. And he says, I'm going to protect you against them. And basically what he's going to do, and this is the saddest part and the irony here, is he has given ISIS a premature early Christmas gift. ISIS, basically, their number one recruitment tool is the West is at war with Islam. A day after President Obama tells the nation, do not divide each other along religious and ethnic lines, do not cast suspicion against Muslims because it helps ISIS, what does Donald Trump, a plain-spoken man, say? I'm going to ban Muslims, who he literally gave a nice gift to ISIS, and I'm sure ISIS emailed him and said, thank you very much for doing our job for us.
Just tell me that there's more to it than that. There is a plain speaking. This was a phrase that Joel used, and you've got to admit that it's more interesting to listen to the guy speak than to listen to a lot of other guys speak, right?
Well, that's part of his appeal. See, what he says, he positions himself as saying, I'm not these old-timers. I'm not part of the establishment. I'm a self-made guy. I don't need corporate money. I have my own money. I'm going to tell it like it is. I don't cow down to political correctness. And I'm going to rationalize your hate. I'm going to be a spokesman for your frustration and say what I got to say, because I don't care about nuance and moderation. And that, of course, is attractive to a base, according to all the studies, that feels disaffected, that sees, you know what, this country's slipping away. And there's anger and there's frustration, but it's channeled in the most poisonous way, which divides Americans along religious and ethnic lines, which actually helps our enemies.
Let me just put that to Joel. Joel, I don't know if you remember that film Network, had the catchphrase, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. And in a way, it's been posited that that is what Donald Trump is appealing to. Do you recognize that in yourself, for example? Angry white man?
No, absolutely not. I reject any such notion of that. In fact, I think what Donald Trump is speaking to is the hopes and dreams of Americans in general, because, and let's look at his minority support. He has phenomenal support with both in the African American community as well as with the Hispanic community, relatively speaking, for a GOP presidential candidate. In fact, in the African American community, he has increased levels of support because they understand that cheap labor flowing across our borders in the form of illegal immigration
Joel.
is ruining African American communities.
Joel, we're going to lose the line. I was about to say that. Let me go back to Wajahat. Wajahat, what's interesting is how hard it has been for opponents to lay a glove on Donald Trump. Now, what would be your advice? Because if you argue with him in a kind of, if you take him seriously and you argue with him, then you give him credibility. If you ignore him, you're just standing aside from the guy who's the center of the show.
Look, when Dick Cheney, who most Muslims consider the manifestation of the Sith Lord himself, basically says that Trump is too extreme, that's very telling. And I think what a lot of the Republicans and I think a lot of Americans have to say is, okay, this guy who's a buffoon, who's a character, who's plain spoken, who's very fun to watch, he is actually dividing us and making us less safe. I think that's what you say. Because his rhetoric actually is poisonous and actually assists our enemies both abroad and at home. And what type of future do we have for the rest of America, all Americans, regardless of religion, ethnicity, and gender, if a man like Trump becomes president and enacts these policies? It will surely be World War III. And, maybe he wants these internment centers. He'll call them Trump centers. And, maybe I'll have to, make biryani there and sell it on the black market just to buy some handheld bidets. But hopefully that reality will not happen.
Could that happen? We're living in an era where these very long-tail events, do seem to happen. So, what is the chance that he gets the Republican nomination, and what is the chance that he goes on to, beat Hillary Clinton?
Look, it's a scary time because he's doubled down on this anti-Muslim rhetoric because he sees that it works with his base, and he is right now the leading Republican presidential candidate. He very well might be, like I said, the leading candidate, and I do see this as the death rattle of a certain white supremacy in America. I don't think he will win because what we have seen is solidarity even with Republicans and conservatives and all along religious and ethnic lines that say enough is enough, this is toxic, and we're going to reject you. So I remain hopeful, and please remain hopeful in America and the future of Americans.
Wajahat Ali, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I've been getting away with it all my